So, hello, and welcome to Truth You Can Wake Up To. I'm Samuel William, and I'm speaking to you, I always have to check, on the 12th of December, 2012. It's currently 10:42. Outside is freezing fog, and it's absolutely freezing cold. That's why I have my scientifically advanced jumper on today, which has nothing to do with the occult. And after the last comments on my previous video, I'm thinking about doing this episode with my hands tied behind my back, because apparently the OK sign, which actually I did with this hand, which that's not a 6. Apparently this means I'm a member of an occultic society, and I am part of the counterintelligence program. So whatever. Firstly, thank you for responding to my suggestion that I'm going to make an episode about techniques used by those who wish to enslave us, and putting them together to see if we can find any patterns. Unequivocally, the answer is yes, you would like to see that, so I will be doing it. It's going to be called It's going to be called NWO Playbook, New World Order Playbook. And it'll be part 1. I've started to do the research on it, and already it's getting some pretty good results. So I'll do part 1, possibly, about techniques of propaganda leading up to war, using examples, and then really calling it part 1 leaves it open to do whatever I want to do. Now, maybe do it about politics, maybe it's about advertising, maybe it's about pharmaceuticals or genetic engineering or chemtrails. Who knows? But I will be doing those. And especially thank you to Mr. D. Murphy25. Didn't realize you were still listening, but thanks for that. And he, of course, is allegedly Dave from awakeradio.co.uk. If you haven't checked that out yet, give it a go. There's some pretty interesting stuff on that, not just Dave himself, but some other things as well. So thank you for you guys. Now, a couple of things I wanted to sort out from what I said in the last episode. It seems I was correct that this royal tyrannical child is going to be female. Although it hasn't been 100% affirmed, they did announce that possibly its name is not going to be Mary, is possibly going to be Diana. And really, I have to show my ignorance, my naivety, that I didn't think of that, because it's so genius in terms of mind control to the mass public. To call this baby Diana is to basically sink an anchor or like a meat hook into people's brains. Meat hook straight into there, saying this child is able to rob you, no worries, because of the psychological and hypnotic programming that has been installed. Of course, trauma-based mind control with Princess Diana dying. Call a baby Diana. Wow, you've now just hit the enter button on a very sophisticated computer program. Of course, it has been announced that this royal child, whoever they might be, this androbot, or whatever it's going to be, is going to cost, just in clothing in the first year, £2 million. But hey, we've got £2 million to spend on baby clothes. Of course we have. Now, the whole strange thing that's going on with the nurse that took the phone call from the Australian DJ's debacle, we'll call it DJ Gate, is really getting very, very strange. Now, as we speak, the autopsy and the inquest is going on. I think the autopsy actually happened throughout last night. The inquest is happening, they say, will begin and, I don't know what the real word is, I think ravine. That's not the right word, that's like a big hole. Will begin and end all in one day. They've said that already. The inquest will begin today and finish today. Can you do that with an inquest? I mean, presumably it has to go on for as long as you need if there's things you need to discover, but they've already predetermined that the conclusions will be met and got at by the end of the day. So we look forward to that, although we don't really, because we know that it's going to be a cover-up. This lady, who was, they say, a lady of Indian descent, newspapers in India, I think, are saying that it's very strange because she was a very, very psychologically strong person. She also left behind 2 children, one of the age of 14, one 17, which really just adds to the weight of the idea that she wouldn't naturally commit suicide. I mean, leaving a 14-year-old and a 17-year-old just because you took a dodgy phone call and you embarrassed the royal family doesn't really seem to make much sense. I mean, the 17-year-old, at that crucial point in their life, about to make some serious life decisions, their life, that 17-year-old and the 14-year-old, their lives are now completely screwed up. It doesn't make any sense, unless, of course, you go along with the idea that we are run by a global conspiracy involving the royal family, which of course we are. The royal family are the centre of the secret societies. You only have to go down to St. James's Palace, which is where Prince William's office is, just to see across the road you have the Royal Arch of Freemasonry, and presumably one day Prince William will become the head of the Royal Arch of Freemasonry, because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it's currently the Queen and Prince Philip. And then one day, this baby Diana, she will become the head of the Royal Arch of Freemasonry, and then will start exerting her royal will upon the planet, and who knows what they do. Essentially, we've just been given another generation of tax servitude. Hooray! Now, talking about tax servitude, of course, as the austerity measures go almost global, they're about to start in America, of course, but here in Europe and in Britain, they've been going for quite a while, and it's wreaking serious havoc on all of the public services that people have been enjoying up to now, and also all of the benefits that people have been getting. And slowly but surely, it's all being wrenched from underneath them. As you can kind of see the pattern that's going on, really, if you look at what Barack Obama has done. What is it? He throughout the first 4 years of his, let's call it, reign, he took the national debt of America from, 5 trillion up to what it is now, somewhere in the stratosphere, 17 trillion or whatever. And what he's essentially managed to do, apart from, of course, expanding the military-industrial complex and forging new wars and new influence throughout the planet, especially concentrating in Africa. That's probably where a lot of that money has gone in all of these paying off governments and special forces and technological equipment that we really don't know exists. Especially pilotless aircraft and drones and robots, and who knows, maybe tiny little insects that are sitting on people's shoulders and listening to their conversations. And who knows what's going on in Africa, because essentially the information is not coming out of there. But what Barack Obama has essentially done in America, I would say, is that he has massively expanded the welfare state in order that when the austerity measures kick in, it creates rioting and poverty and despair, and essentially the things that we associate with collapse and apocalypse are things that are going to happen possibly next year in America. I've been reading and looking a lot at, of course, what we can do to prepare for what's going to happen possibly next year, which is, mass rioting, food shortages. We can only imagine that will happen next year. Of course, they may put us on the long game, which means it won't happen for a while, but certainly every single person out there needs to be taking their money out of banks, doing something other than using fiat currency. Of course, we need fiat currency just to continue to buy food and stuff like that. But when the shit hits the fan, which it certainly will do, we do not want to have any savings as fiat currency. That is a simple thing. And also, having some food in your house, having loo rolls and matches and candles and rice and cans of pulses and all of this kind of stuff. We really, really, really need to get on to making sure that we have this stuff in our houses. And this is not fear-mongering. It's just very, very simple reality. And that all of the experts, no matter whether they are globally influenced and they are part of the matrix or separate, they're alternative media and part of a different matrix, everybody's saying the same thing, is that riots will happen when the austerity measures kick in, and possibly when Europe, the currency in Europe hits hyperinflation. We need to be ready for that. Now, the articles I wanted to talk about today are essentially things actually have been in the last day or two covered on a few other YouTube shows. So I'll sort of briskly go over those. But of course, what we have going on in the mainstream media in the United Kingdom is that we have our politicians sticking up for us. We have them fighting, battling, working hard to make sure that the people are represented and protected. Now, one person that's doing this is, of course, Theresa May. Theresa May is trying to force through this data communications bill, which is essentially a spy bill that is going to make sure that things like GCHQ and MI5 and MI6 have the ability to surveil us at any opportunity. I want to specifically look at a few articles here. There is an article which talks about, of course, that Nick Clegg, who, of course, is David Cameron's sidekick in the so-called coalition government, as I put that in air quotes, Nick Clegg says that the data bill cannot proceed. Oh, no, says Mr. Clegg. It needs a fundamental rethink. Of course, in today's politics in the United Kingdom, they don't even need the left-right paradigm. They have it all. They don't need, like, Conservative against Labour and the Labour politician going, oh, no, you can't do that, but I will when I'm in power. And the other one going, oh, yes, we do need to do that, and you'll never be in power. They don't even need that, because at the moment with the coalition government, they have it all in one neat little package. Cameron and Clegg both saying opposite things to muddle and confuse the public, to make sure that the public think that somebody is representing their views. But of course, nobody is representing the public's view, unless, of course, the public are completely manipulated into having the view that spying on the general public is good. Now, there's an article here from the Telegraph which says that the Snoopers bill needs work done to ease privacy concerns, not to secure or to maintain privacy to the general public, but to ease concern over the lack of privacy. What sort of work can you do to ease concern? Well, it's called either social engineering or behavioral engineering, or it's called applied behavioral psychology. All of these things that the British government have always, almost in their entire history, been very, very good at manipulating public opinion. Of course, throughout, if you look back, the worst riot that ever happened in central London was not the poll tax riots in the, when was that, in the 1990 or something like that? It was the riot that happened, which was an anti-monarchy riot in, I think, 1887, and in Trafalgar Square, and they had to summon all those guards in the red jackets and the guns and the bayonets to come down, and they ringed the entire of Trafalgar Square because there was this baying mob that was trying to bring down the monarchy, who at the time was Queen Victoria. And if you look back into what is official British history, you will see that Queen Victoria, especially in 1887, which was her, I think, her diamond or golden jubilee. There's lots of buildings around in some of the poorer areas in London, in sort of Zone 2, places like Whitechapel and Spitalfields and Shoreditch and all this kind of stuff. Lots of buildings, and some of the marketplaces say 1887, Queen Victoria's Golden Jubilee, because she apparently did in 1887 lots of brilliant work for the poor people. If that was true, then why did the poor people all try and storm Parliament, and why did they go up to Trafalgar Square and try and beat up the British Army? All of these things put together, if you look at official history, and then you look at you read some of the books that actually recount the real history, showing documentation and police records and all this kind of stuff, you'll start to realize there's a very, very different history there, especially centered upon London in the late 1800s, that was massively anti-monarchy. And I would say that feeling of anti-monarchy is still there very much in every single person if you ask people and you press people and they're willing to talk to you on the right issues. If you talk to them about the right things and you point out, for example, if you try, although it's a very difficult thing to do, try and convince your friends and work colleagues and people that you know that taxation is a form of theft or coercion, it's extortion, then suddenly, if you can get them to agree just some very simple and tangible things to do with the morality of taxation, suddenly you open up this quagmire of repressed feelings that are anti-monarchy. And why wouldn't you be anti-monarchy if you've got somebody stealing from you and maintaining power, living in massive palaces that are dotted throughout the country, and being shipped around with armed guards in bulletproof cars? Why would you want to pay for that if you didn't agree fundamentally that the monarchy was doing something good? If you are in fact just paying for the protection of thieves, then surely the monarchy is a bad idea. And if we truly live in a free society, which of course most of us know that we don't, but if a lot of the people who are sort of bumbling around in a bubble-headed style with their social conditioning intact, they believe we live in a free society. And I think no matter if they're going to fall out with you about it, it's very, very good to point out that we are living in a tyrannical dictatorship with the royal family at the head and having their the sort of minions easing the public view or easing privacy concerns. They will fall out with you, but it's a good idea to sort of point these out. And also examples from history, like the riots of 1887, are a very, very good thing, because the people that were rioting are the people that are around today. Now, of course, but Nick Clegg is saying that he is, battling, making sure that this law cannot go through. At the same time, of course, we know that is the mechanism by which this law is going to go through, that Nick Clegg will necessarily have to say, oh, I disagree with it, but I'm powerless to do anything about it. Now, the spying bill, of course, there's a lady called Theresa May, who is very much saying that we need this spy bill in order to protect the general public from terrorists and paedophiles. Terrorists and paedophiles, maybe paedophilic terrorists. Isn't that the worst kind of terrorist, a paedophilic terrorist, like the politicians? One of these articles I found says a rather worrying thing. It talks a lot about the technology. It says the technology that this bill is going to be bringing in, which is basically public money going into private hands, building a system of surveillance. This is 1984, 100%. This is the surveillance grid that will culminate in telescreens in our homes, as if we don't have them already. If you've got a smart television, that is a telescreen. It's got a camera on it that does facial recognition. But one of the worrying things that's in one of these articles, this is also from the Telegraph. The title is Spies Need Snooping Powers to Protect Public from Terrorists, Committee Warns. Well, halfway down the article, there's a little paragraph that says this, and I quote, "One group and they didn't say who the group is, one group said the technology could, for example, meet a request for all mobile phone users in Trafalgar Square on a given day, and time and specific websites each of those people visited in the last year. So they're going to be randomly, on any particular day, taking a large, public, crowded space, identifying all of those people within that space, and having a look at all of the websites, when they looked at it, and specific websites that each of those people looked at throughout the last year. That's the kind of thing that this technology is going to be doing. This is like a grid sweep. This is a thing that is saying, if you are in a public space, you have no privacy whatsoever. Now, also at the same time, of course, they are very, very upset if, for example, somebody like me would go out and film them. If you film a Westminster Council official, if you film a police officer, they can get very, very, very upset about it because they maintain that they should have privacy and that you need their express permission in order to film, while at the same time, they've got this magnetic grid sweep, which is basically looking back in time over your activity, because you may be a paedophile or a terrorist. So this is like a paedophile sweep, a terrorist. It's just absolutely terrible, isn't it? Of course, if you've been to London recently, or if you live in London, there's this whole new people-friendly thing that they've been doing, which is called putting Wi-Fi in the Tube network. So if, for example, you go into Leicester Square Tube and you're waiting for your train, you can log on to the freely available Wi-Fi that is there for you. No problem, mate. Come on, chaps, we're going to go on the free Wi-Fi. Except what this thing is really doing, they've put it into all of the major stations in central London. So, for example, if you're on the Piccadilly line, you're on the Victoria line, most of the stations as you come through central London are going to be giving you free Wi-Fi because they love you. No, not because they love you, because they want to know who you are. And somebody, for example, at King's Cross Station, who's coming through in a train, might be going off to do a terrorist activity, like going to protest Downing Street. So, or they might be going to do freedom of speech in Trafalgar Square. So the surveillance network is being touted as a people-friendly, happy thing of free communications and wireless internet connection. Once you've seen through the propaganda of people-friendly security and services, you start to realize that you're sitting in a massive machine that is encasing you in a transparent box. There is nothing that you can do that can remain secret if you are in or around these technological surveillance hubs. One of which being, of course, King's Cross Station. Next year, by the beginning of next year, at King's Cross Station, there's going to be I'm not sure if it's iris or facial recognition system that's going to be specifically advertising for you. It's going to be seeing who you are, searching your internet records to see what you've been buying, and then advertising specific adverts to you as you approach the sign. Is this a good thing for the economy? That is a good question. Now, also trying to fight for us. Fight like Winston Churchill fought for us during the war, even though he was part of many secret societies, and he was an old boy. He was part of the old boys school network, and he's from one of the wealthiest families. Winston Churchill was in fact called Winston Spencer, who comes from the Spencer family. There is the traditional Spencer family mansion down on next to Green Park near Buckingham Palace, along with the Astor family home and all that kind of stuff. Winston Churchill was not somebody who was a great people's person. He was essentially a secret society globalist entity, as of course is our good friend David Cameron, who likes to pretend that he is standing up for the people. Of course, David Cameron is going to Europe. And there's an article here from ITN, which is from today, from this morning. It says Cameron to battle over EU bank union. So the title or the tagline of this article is that David Cameron is going to Europe to battle over the banking union that is forming in Europe, which gives us the idea that he's going there to make sure that Britain does not get caught into this Soviet banking political union. But actually, let's hear what David Cameron is really doing.
No, I'm not happy at all. These are very important negotiations. Clearly, at a time when we're making difficult decisions at home over public spending, it'd be quite wrong, it is quite wrong, for there to be proposals for this increased extra spending in the EU. So we're going to be negotiating very hard for a good deal for Britain's taxpayers and for Europe's taxpayers, and to keep the British rebate.
Oh, we're making some difficult decisions at home, aren't we, David Cameron? It's very difficult to make the decision to fuck over the poor and to make sure that you can consolidate a sort of global empire along with your handlers and your paymasters in Europe. It's very clear from what he just said that he's not battling against those that wish to include Britain in a European banking union. It is quite clear that what he's doing is going to get the best deal he can possibly get to make sure that we don't get screwed over when we go into the banking union. If you're going to make a deal, if you want to cut a good deal in any transaction, you have to give up something in order to achieve what you want. And of course, if he's saying that we want to get like a cheap budget package, we want to pay less in this European banking union, then we're going to have to pay for it with giving up political power. So what the tagline on a lot of these articles are saying about what David Cameron is doing in Europe in the next few days is a complete opposite to what he is really doing, which is actually making sure that we are completely tied up in this European fiscal union. Now, sometimes it's very difficult to convince people that there's something very, very dodgy going on in the world. The behavioral engineering grid is so strong and constantly reinforcing itself on a daily basis that even if you can get through to people just a tiny, tiny little bit of evidence, just a tiny little thing that shows them that something dodgy is going on, and in fact we're not run or ruled by moral, stand-up, honest citizens. These politicians are not honest people. If you can get them to agree that they actually know in their heads that these politicians are professional liars and that the agenda that runs throughout the government doesn't change depending on whether it's the Tories or Labour or anyone. Once you can get people to agree to that, you would hope that they would take it upon themselves to then take that to the next level, to actually wake up and go, hang on a minute, if we're run by criminals and they're taking our money and they are actually turns out that out of office they're working on behalf of banks like Tony Blair was working for JP Morgan possibly, then surely we need to do something about it. But the next time that you talk to that person, you'll realize that they've been sucked back into the matrix, and that's because of this constant daily reinforcement of propaganda and behavioral engineering. I mean, even today, as we speak, the piece of news has just broken that there was a state conspiracy to murder an Irish solicitor in the 1980s that was to do with the IRA and what they call the Troubles. David Cameron has stood up in the House of Commons today and said there was no overarching state conspiracy, but there was a little conspiracy. But that's fine. You don't have to worry about the fact that there was lying and murder and collusion and corruption. Just that it wasn't too bad. And this apparently is supposed to allay our fears and to make us feel all snuggly at Christmas time. While at the same time, they're putting through a law that pretty much makes certain that this kind of information actually can't get out in the future. That it may be deemed that it's not good for the government's image for people to learn that they've been involved in international conspiracies for murder and corruption. And, you know, maybe it's not for us to know that HSBC helped in money laundering. Maybe that's bad for HSBC's business to be exposed for criminal activity in supporting drug running and drug money laundering. Maybe it's the people, the normal people who are possibly going to speak out against their very fabric of their society being broken down because of austerity measures. Maybe it's us that need to be surveilled, and maybe it's us that need to be watched and herded, when surely it's only rational to any person that it's the MPs that need to be surveilled. It's the government, it's the state that needs to be surveilled. It's MI5 that needs to have their bank accounts monitored to see what transactions they're doing, every single transaction. It's MI5 and MI6 and the Secret Service who are paid for by us unwilling servants to kill and maim and push a geopolitical agenda which spans the planet. Maybe it's those guys that need to have their funding reduced, and not the ordinary people. This should be like a Christmas message. Hopefully, I'm sure that the Queen, when she does her Christmas speech or whatever, the Queen's speech on Christmas Day, maybe she'll address these concerns and she'll announce that MI5 is going to be subject to austerity measures. Wouldn't that be a nice Christmas message? Anyway, I've been Samuel William. Thanks very much for watching. Please click the thumbs up and share. If you care, you share. Sharing these videos is the only way that they are successful. For those of you who do that regularly, I thank you very, very much. But for now, goodbye.